Good morning, and welcome to Raven Light Healing Meditations. I'm Brenna, and this is my 100-day Sit for Peace Mindfulness Meditation Challenge. Today is day 59, and I'm starting out early because I have a busy festival weekend ahead. So, let's practice. Relaxing into a comfortable posture. I'd like to extend gratitude to everyone following my journey, to my sister who sits with me every day. I love you so much. And to everyone on earth for being alive at this time. Thank you for being here. I'd like to begin today by taking 3 quiet breaths. Sinking in to the present moment. Fully inhabiting the body and being wholly present with this moment right here. Breathing in and breathing out. When I started this challenge, I didn't really know what I expected. I just knew that it was important and that I needed to take some form of action to show myself who I wanted to be. And throughout the process, many things have changed and evolved. And I've also learned. A few years ago, my life felt really compressing. I felt trapped, depressed, deeply angry, and generally upset and unhappy with the course my life had taken. A few years before that, there was a lot of death in my life. My mom died of lung cancer in the hospital in 2011. The pain and sadness that my grandmother experienced created for her the same cancer. And then I sat by as I slowly watched her decay as well. My brothers became deeply depressed, turned to drugs, and eventually also left the earth. Shortly after that, my Papa Claude passed away from his human form. I felt like death had cursed me. Like it was following me everywhere. And that everyone I loved would eventually die. And while this is true, I looked at it through the lens of fear and lack of understanding. I didn't realize that it was all for the purpose of a greater plan. And as I discuss this now, I feel their presence, gently holding me, and telling me it's okay, that they aren't gone. They are right here. Fortunately, I have the most amazing husband, and he sat by me every step of the way. And not just him, his whole family welcomed me in with open arms and accepted me as one of them. I was treated like their daughter, their sister, their auntie. I became part of their entire world. And their love helped me get through. And then things in our life, once again, began to feel compressing and challenging. Many changes in quick succession. Financial instability. Moving houses. It seemed like destruction all over again. And this time, it wasn't just me who felt helpless. It was all of us. We didn't know where life was taking us. It felt like our hearts were broken, cracked, and we couldn't see that we were being cracked so that we could allow more light and more love into our lives. Throughout this time, I ended up in the hospital with a gastrointestinal illness. And while I was there, I was invited to be a part of a book club. A dear friend had gotten the idea to do a simple book club, reading the book, The Four Agreements, by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. And I agreed. And at that time, I didn't know that would be the first step toward creating the life I'd always dreamed of. At the time, I still felt deeply trapped by my circumstances. I didn't drive. I still don't. But my friend offered to pick me up. She wanted me to be part of this group. So I read the book. And I showed up. And I learned. I started to see that everything in my life was a choice, and that I had the power to make a different choice if I wanted a different life. I realized everything in my life took place in some form of agreement on my part. I discovered that I was not a victim of my circumstances, and that I had the power to take these challenges and use them in a different way. The book club went on for a month or two, meeting weekly, discussing the challenges in our lives, and noticing places where we could make adjustments, where we could learn to be understanding and compassionate. We created vision boards and simply listened to each other. Each one of us having the opportunity to share our challenges. But this circle was not just about complaining. It was about understanding. After the book club, I started to seek more study about myself. I often thought self-help books were really cliche, silly, dull. They couldn't possibly work. But after the book club, the understanding and realization had me hooked. I needed to learn, and not just learn about anything. To learn about myself, my own mind and body, and my life experience. At the time, I had started working in my husband's construction company. After COVID, I never went back to teaching preschool, considering that my mom and my grandma both had issues with their lungs. My family felt that it was dangerous for me to be exposed to the respiratory illness. So I started painting, drilling, and learning to build. Throughout my life, I had often considered myself kind of clumsy. I thought handling power tools would not be a very good fit. But as it turns out, I was really good at it. I learned to rebuild decks, to hang in mud drywall, to build cabinets, to paint and texture ceilings, to lay and grout tile. And it was fun, because all day I was with my family, and we were growing together. Throughout this time, I started to study myself. I began to read and listen to different philosophical and religious podcasts. And eventually, I found something called channeling. Everyone thought that it was kind of crazy. And I'll admit, so did I. But when I saw these people, there was something in me that couldn't look away. I had to keep listening. As crazy as it all sounded, everything they said started making sense. And it felt like an understanding, a memory started growing in my heart. At work, I would paint, put on headphones, and listen to hours of this material. How the universe works. What is God? And who am I? What is the true nature of my existence? Along this process, the same friend who started the book club introduced me to a self-study program called the Gene Keys. At the time, I felt really trapped by my financial situation. Like, even if I wanted to heal or access this knowledge, that I couldn't afford to. And this woman is an angel. She gifted me all the materials that I would need to take the journey self-realization through the Gene Keys. And for that, I am so deeply grateful. You know who you are. You changed my life. Thank you. I promised her that her gift would be put to good use. And I feel that I have kept my promise by continuing to study, continuing to learn, and grow. I studied in the program of the Gene Keys by myself for quite some time. Many others in my family still didn't quite understand what it was I was doing. But I remember reading about the power of one in a relationship. How one person has the power to change an entire group. So I persisted. I read and watched each of the shadows and gifts playing out in real time in my life. I continue to listen to all sorts of theories, philosophies, psychologies, different ways of interpreting the universe. And then a synchronicity began to occur. I would listen to a podcast called Interview with Ed. And Ed stands for extra dimensional. A little crazy, I know. But I couldn't stop listening. Everything just made so much sense. And the love that I started to feel for myself and for all of life was undeniable. There was a moment where I remember feeling like I could feel the bird in the sky before I saw it. Like I could connect to the energy of the ants on the ground before I even knew with my eyes that they were there. And I remember thinking, wow, is this what they meant when they talked about connecting to your heart? It was wholly new and a deeper experience of connection and love than I had ever felt. I started to feel alive again. I started to hear my mom's voice in my mind telling me she was right here and that she hadn't left. Along with her came my grandma, my brother, I could feel them, and I started to see the signs and the places where they showed up in my world. It still felt quite unbelievable. But the experience cannot be denied. I know what I felt, what I feel now. And as I continue to read and study and listen to different teachers, I kept coming across the term Vipassana meditation. I didn't really know what it meant, what it was, or why it kept showing up. But something in me said, this is important. Pay attention. So I started to do some research. And I discovered that Vipassana meditation is about mindfulness. It's about learning to be aware, awake, and fully present with every passing moment, without denying any part of life, even the suffering, even the death. And that Vipassana meditation, combined with the gene keys, opened up a pathway, a doorway, or a portal. And so I went on a journey. I did some research, and I found that that there was a Vipassana meditation retreat just hours away from my home in a place called Plant City, Florida. Tricyca Meditation Center, run by a Thai teacher, Arjun Willie, and his amazing team. And at the time, I did still feel trapped by my finances, and I noticed that these retreats are donation-based, free of cost. They allow you to come to learn about the most important thing, the nature of the self. And we all have access. They don't limit us by having a price point. They open the retreat to anyone wanting to learn and study Vipassana meditation. So I applied to the retreat. And I got accepted. Some of my family came, and we experienced it together. 10 days of silence, fasting from noon to dawn, meditating and being with the mind. The learning that happens when we are alone with our mind is transformational. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and also the most rewarding. I have never learned so much about my mind and body. I remember feeling when I came home like I had experienced some kind of trauma. Like I'd been cracked open. But not in the way of brokenness. More like being cracked like a glow stick. Allowing myself to release so much pain, so much anger and grief that I'd been holding on to. There was so much there that I wasn't even aware of. And as time went on, the value of the practice continued to deepen. And I started to learn about myself in a deeper way than ever before. I started to feel connected to all of life. The separation and the illusion started to break down. So, the next year, I decided to return to the retreat to continue practicing. During this time, I had also discovered a form of therapy called quantum healing. I felt enthralled and entranced. I felt like I'd finally found what I was meant to do. But once again, finances felt like a struggle. I have a very large family, and it takes a lot to keep us all going, or at least we thought it did. But I persisted on my journey. I heard a story about a woman, a photographer. She dreamed of traveling the world, taking pictures of the historical, sacred sites. But she didn't have the money to fly herself around the world. So she got creative and brave. She came up with an idea. She proposed to many different airline companies a proposition. That if they would allow her to fly on their planes to these different sites, that she would take beautiful photos of the places and allow them to use them in their brochures and advertisements, free of charge, in exchange for them allowing her to travel. And not only did they say yes, they put her up in the most amazing hotels, fed her gourmet meals, and she got to live her dream, all because of her bravery in asking. So I sat with this story and I asked myself, how could I use that example to create the life I dreamed of, even though I felt limited by finances and circumstances? And I ended up creating a GoFundMe, asking my friends and community for donations to help support me in taking the training that I wanted to become a quantum healing practitioner. And I offered in exchange a free session once I completed the training to anyone who donated even 1 penny. I ended up generating the funds and taking the course and offering the sessions. I still offer these sessions free of cost because I don't think that healing should be limited by anyone's financial situation. I persisted with practicing mindfulness meditation, studying my gene keys, cultivating and nurturing a loving, compassionate heart. And that's not to say that I'm always perfect. There's still a lot of work to do in here. But I feel like I've opened something. And this year, once again, I will return to the retreat to practice and deepen my understanding of the nature of myself, the nature of the mind and body, connecting myself to all that is. We often call it God. And we tend to think that it lives far away, up in the sky. For me, God lives right here, in my heart, every day. Through this practice, I've learned to embrace the fullness of the human experience. And I'm not saying it's easy. I have moments. I have entire days, even multiple days, like the last few. My whole body has felt like a cramp. But now, I have tools to manage the discomfort, the pain, the unpleasantness. I know how to observe it without reacting. And I do my best not to cause more suffering for others. This practice takes consistent effort. And I do make mistakes and stumble along the way. And I find that each time when I turn to my practice, I'm able to find solid ground to stand on. Some days, it feels like I'm holding on to my breath for dear life. And other days, the elation, the bliss fills my human. And I feel so grateful, so happy, and so deeply alive. And I'm noticing that it's not just me that's changing. The people in my family are seeing what I'm doing. And they're practicing too. They are learning about their own mind and body through my example. And this is where I can see that it truly is our presence and our example that catalyzes the most powerful transformations. And I realize that all the destruction was necessary, because it was the destruction, every single step, all the sadness, difficulties that led me to this moment, right here. And then about a year ago, we started a remodel for an amazing, pure-hearted woman. And slowly, but steadily, life started to change. It was already changing. Now, it started to feel like, after 3 or 4 years of consistent effort, that the outside world was finally catching up with the inner work. Opportunities started to grow. Beautiful flowers growing from this garden of my heart. And now, there are still challenges. I'm still practicing. But the understanding, the aliveness, has made such a difference in the experience of this life. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand what true love and happiness is. I feel more deeply than ever before. Sadness, anger, but also pain, beauty, joy, serenity. And I'm starting to see that life is a fullness of duality. If we only ever knew happiness, would we even know what happiness was? We know happiness because we know sadness. We know pain because we know pleasure. We know aloneness because we know connectedness. Each of these things is like two sides of the same coin. And we don't have one without the other. It's like that symbol, the yin-yang. with the little bit of white inside the dark, little bit of dark inside the white. But you need both to make the full circle. This human life is a pretty strange one. It's often hard for us to understand the necessity of suffering. We want to run away from the darkness and run towards the light. And as we do this, we only experience one-sidedness. We experience life through bits and pieces, and not with any real fullness. So I've learned that this practice is about accepting, embracing, and allowing all aspects of the human experience. Facing my fear and becoming as open-hearted, loving, and compassionate as I possibly can. So thank you for listening to my story. And my wish for you is that you can find a deep and everlasting happiness, connecting with the true nature of our existence, realizing how powerful our human experience truly is. And my wish for you is that you will find enough goodness in others to believe in a world of peace. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.